We are live.
Welcome, everyone, virtually and in person. Opening the Monday, December 20th, 2021 Westfield, Washington Township Advisory Plan Commission. Will staff please note the presence of a quorum?
Kristen Berkman,
Here.
Matthew Deck,
Here.
Robert Horke,
Here.
Mike Johns,
Here.
Ginny Kelleher, Andre Maui,
Here.
Victor McCarty,
Here.
Dave Schmitz,
Here.
Cindy Spoljaric.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Ginny indicated she was attending virtually. Are you online yet, Ginny? Guess not. She'll probably join us in progress. We have one set of minutes to approve, the minutes of our December 6th, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion to approve these minutes unless there happens to be questions?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 6th.
Thank you. Motion from Victor McCarty. Is there a second?
Second that.
Seconded by Andre Maui. Will staff please call the roll?
Kristen Berkman,
Yes.
Matthew Deck,
Yes.
Robert Horke,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Andre Maui,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Dave Schmitz,
Yes.
Cindy Spoljaric.
Yes.
Thank you. We have an update to our 2022 meeting schedule. Whoever that might have been, please mute your microphone. Item next is updating our 2022 meeting schedule due to a new federal holiday, Juneteenth, that falls on a Monday, needing to move our meeting that week to a Tuesday. There are no questions or comments about that. Can we do just a simple consensus to approve this, or do we want to do a roll call vote? Oh, that's true. All right. Shall we, is there a motion to approve this change in the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the updated APC 2022 scheduled meetings.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
So we have a motion from Dave Schmitz, seconded by Kristen Berkman. Will staff please call the roll?
Kristen Berkman,
Yes.
Matthew Deck,
Yes.
Robert Horke,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Andre Maui,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Dave Schmitz,
Yes.
Cindy Spoljaric.
Yes.
Kelleher here. I'll also say yes.
Oh, thanks, Jenny.
Thank you. Please note that Ginny Kelleher has joined the meeting at 7:04. Will staff please review the APC rules and procedures for tonight's meeting?
Due to the COVID-19 emergency as declared by the Governor of Indiana, the format and conduct of the meeting has been modified to comply with executive orders regarding the conduct of public meetings, public hearings, and public gatherings. Relevant portions of the Indiana open door law have been amended or suspended during the pendency of the emergency. For items requiring a public hearing, tonight's meeting has the following structure. The department will summarize the petition, then the petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present to the Plan Commission. The president will open a public hearing. Individuals will be given 3 minutes to speak. The public hearing will be closed when all interested members of the audience have had a chance to be heard and all emails received during the meeting have been provided to the Plan Commission members. The petitioner will then have a chance to respond to comments. The Plan Commission will follow with any comments, questions, or concerns regarding the petition. For items that do not require a public hearing, the department will summarize the petition and highlight any changes or modifications since the item was last before the Plan Commission. The department will also describe what action, if any, is necessary to be taken. The petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present any changes, and the Plan Commission will act upon the petition. Please do not disrupt the proceedings in any way. If you need to have a private discussion, then we ask that you please quietly exit the room. Please silence your devices at this time. If you must answer them, then please quietly exit the room. If you are attending in person and wish to speak in regard to a petition scheduled for a public hearing, then please fill out a yellow card and bring it to the front prior to the presentation of the petition. During your comments, please state your name and address into the microphone for the record, and we ask that you do not repeat previously stated comments. Your presentation will be timed and you will be advised when there are approximately 30 seconds remaining. If you are not attending in person, comments regarding a petition, they should be emailed to planners@westfield.in.gov with the petition name or number included in the subject line. Those comments will be forwarded to Plan Commission members and the petitioner. We would like to remind everyone to please speak directly into the microphone so your comments can be put onto the record. Also, please mute your microphone when not speaking. If you come up to the podium to speak, please ensure that the microphone is on, as indicated by the green light on the base. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no consent agenda items tonight, so we move into items of business, starting with 2108-PUD-22, Urban Apples PUD. Planner is Ham Howard to give a staff report.
Yes, thank you and good evening, Mr. President, members of the commission. I'm Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening, we have a proposed new PUD district to be known as Urban Apples. This 24-acre site is located at 18326 Spring Mill Road and is currently zoned AGSF1 with an approved variance for wine processing. The proposed ordinance contains standards to accommodate the expansion of the existing use to a larger agritourism use. This item received the public hearing on August 2nd and was before you again on October 4th, but did not receive a recommendation at that time. Several changes have been made since that meeting, including 2 additional changes made today as shown on the updated red line. The petitioner will provide more details on those changes during his presentation. The Plan Commission is satisfied. We advise forwarding a recommendation to the City Council tonight. Matt Skelton is here to present, after which both he and I will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Skelton?
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Plan Commission. Thank you for your time this evening. For the record, I'm Matt Skelton with Church Hill and Antrim with offices at 116 North Union Street here in Westfield. Pardon me, excuse me. With me this evening is, with the Urban Apples team, is Noah Herron, Michael Hayner, and Mark Rupenthal in the audience. We did receive several comments from the Plan Commission at your last meeting and have been working diligently to address them. We've received several comments since that meeting from Plan Commission members, and thank you to staff for helping to communicate those since then as well. We have taken some time to work with our engineer, our site engineer, our building architect, and our landscape architect to prepare and revise the plans that have been incorporated into the proposal before you this evening. I'll start by just highlighting on the elevations here for the Vine building. We received a lot of comment regarding masonry treatment, and we received suggestion to provide a more consistent masonry wainscot and consider some other enhancements on the building to increase the architectural items of interest. And so we've incorporated, as you might notice, we have some white trim that we've changed here on some of the doors, but we've incorporated what was more of a standard garage door. This is actually a retractable glass door wall. I mean, it's retractable seasonally, but it's basically a glass retractable door. And then we've incorporated these architectural barn door elements, pardon me, to further enhance that front facade. We've also introduced some additional window panes in some of these larger buildings to increase the articles of interest as well. Also, at the suggestion of one of the Plan Commission members, we have incorporated what are, I guess, it's probably easier to see if you're zooming in on your screen, but these are faux stable doors, so the windows actually give kind of an appearance of a stable look. So we've spent some time on this and hope that you like the changes. And I just put the old one in here just as a frame of reference. I think it's linked to your materials as well. Could I zoom in a little bit on this? Here. Can I do it with the roller? Oh, got it. Thank you. Perfect. Oh, I forgot to mention on the previous exhibit, there are some, this accurately shows our architectural lighting. We have the gooseneck, come on. It shows the gooseneck light fixtures as well, which will look really nice in the evening. We had received a request to consider removing the animal interaction exhibits from this proposal. And although there's still a definite interest in doing that at some point in the future, it was suggested to us that maybe that's something, once we're up and established, if we'd like to revisit with the Plan Commission. We understand that that's an entirely new zoning request and there's no guarantees, but the animal interaction exhibits, petting zoo, pony rides, anything like that has been eliminated as part of the agritourism entitlements under the proposal before you this evening. There was a request to clarify that the seasonal parking area here is not to be used for overnight guests or camping. And I think the ordinance, the UDO, would not permit that anyway, but just to be 100% clear, there's been language incorporated into the PUD that makes that just very, very clear. We received a request at the last Plan Commission meeting to consider introducing some standards to restrict the size and the materials used for the greenhouse area planned here in the seeds area. There's been a limitation of 3,000 square feet, maximum size for the greenhouse area. And just to be clear, I think there was some confusion at the last meeting that this might be a frame structure with a synthetic soft membrane stretched across it, and that is not at all the case. This is a permanent construction. They will have translucent panels, if not glass, that will allow sun, obviously, to get through to the greenhouse. But it's of a permanent construction. It is a solid material. It's not a membrane. In previous versions of the PUD ordinance, there was some language that provided exceptions for foundation plantings. As you may recall, specifically within areas where, on sides of buildings where additions are planned, and also for any existing non-conforming conditions that might prohibit that. And we've worked with our site designer, and we're going to be able to comply with the foundation plantings. So all that text has been eliminated from the PUD. So we default to the normal foundation plantings included in the UDO. And probably most notably, we have incorporated a landscaping plan. I know there was some suggestion earlier that we may not need to go that far to prepare an actual landscaping plan, but it just seemed easier to communicate the vision for this corridor by just preparing the landscaping plan. And it's hard to make out at this scale, and we do have zoom in exhibits after this in your PUD ordinance, but each of these plantings are labeled. We know exactly what's being planted and where. I think it's important to highlight here, there's a four-rail fence planned along the entire corridor of the Spring Mill area. And these squares, they're identified in the next exhibit, but these are the masonry columns that are to be installed along that frontage as well, which will be consistent with the masonry that will be used in the entry feature here, and it's the same masonry that is used on the building facades as well, so it'll continue that common architectural theme. And then while I'm on this exhibit, I'll just highlight, this is where any entry signage would be located. And then this is the northernmost end of the property, north is east, and this just identifies the service area sign for the service traffic. And then I'll scroll down here. Yeah, there's the fence. So this is the fence that would be constructed between the masonry members and the masonry columns. This is the same masonry that we will be using throughout the development. There was a request received regarding let me see here, requesting that this area, that the orchard plants actually be required to be planted, and we were asked for a date that they were supposed to be planted, and so that's been incorporated into the PUD ordinance as well. Most of these are already planted. Many of these will be planted. These may be planted in 2 phases, but they are all to be planted by April of 2023. There's some, believe it or not, even apple trees are in short supply. And so we know that we can get them all. We will be able to have access to all the supply we need and be able to install them by the April date that is incorporated into your PUD, April 2023. And then I think I highlighted the signage locations, but there are also exhibits that have been incorporated into the PUD ordinance that shows the character and quality. This would be more the service entrance type of signage, smaller scale, and then, except it's obviously this isn't landscaped and ours would be. And then this shows the character and quality, although the masonry will be a different style of masonry as I've included here. But this shows the basic kind of quality and character of the entry feature that we're proposing. One other thing, we received there were some lingering concerns, I guess I would call them, about making sure that the music shelter is designed in a way that is compliant with city standards. And so there's no better way to do that than require us to demonstrate that it complies before we get a certificate of occupancy. That means we can use the structure. So in your PUD ordinance, there is a requirement. Urban Apples is required to pay for this sound engineer to test the facility, and the city actually selects. They're actually doing work for the city, but the bill is paid by Urban Apples, and that testing has to be successful prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, or we're unable to use the structure. And then lastly, I thought that it would be just helpful to discuss this together. And throughout the PUD, there are several deadlines or timelines for the improvements that are shown on the concept plan. And really, there's 2 big milestones. One milestone is the 12-month mark. The 12-month mark, after 12 months of this ordinance passing, if it is to be approved, the Vine building, this building here, has to be completed and pass all of its inspections and have a certificate of occupancy. But a certificate of occupancy cannot be issued for that building unless this property is in zoning compliance. And in order to be in zoning compliance 12 months after the adoption of this ordinance, the streetscape improvements all have to be installed. That's everything, the fence, signage, and plantings. And all have to be installed prior, to be eligible for that certificate of occupancy. So no public occupancy, no wine production. This all has to be completed within 12 months. The second timeline is 24 months, 2 years. And it could happen sooner, but within 2 years of the adoption of this ordinance, the cidery building must be completed. And in order for the cidery building, and when I say completed, it needs to obtain a certificate of occupancy we're able to use the structure for its intended purpose. In order for that to happen, there are several things that have to occur first. One, all the orchard trees will have been installed the April prior to that, assuming it is 10 years. It could synchronize better than that. The mound here at this location must be installed. All landscaping there needs to be installed. And then the music shelter must be installed, and it must be inspected. It must pass its testing and have a certificate of occupancy awarded. So prior to this, which is, the cidery operation is essentially what this proposal is about. The vine, everything that will be done in this building is pretty much approved under the current variance, the wine production. And so this is an important aspect of this project. So this is really kind of driving the motivation to get these things completed. So we've really tried to simplify this into two big timing milestones: 12 months, 24 months, and then, of course, the city has its duration language that it requested and regularly requests that provides that if approvals aren't obtained within, I think in this case it's 2027, then the zoning goes away. So it's it's really kind of an abbreviated window there. We also have a couple of changes that were requested just earlier today. And the red line that Pam mentioned that's linked to your materials includes these, but I will quickly highlight them. They're relatively simple, but I think they were important to the folks that mentioned them. And one is a further restriction on accessory buildings. Today, accessory buildings under the city's normal UDO standards, normally applicable, require accessory buildings to be subordinate in intensity, use, character, everything to whatever the primary use is. In this case, we were requested to consider additional restrictions, and they've been incorporated. So one is that there shall be no more than 2 accessory buildings. This, of course, does not include the picnic shelters and the music shelter itself. But 2 storage buildings, and these are things for like tractors. I mean, this is a horticultural operation, so there's going to be equipment and things that need to be stored in a structure. In addition to being architecturally consistent with the Vines building, there will be a maximum of 2 buildings, and neither one of them are permitted to exceed 2,000 square feet in size. And that's before you this evening for your consideration. And then lastly, these are, we were asked to consider incorporating the same sound restrictions that are incorporated into the I'll get this wrong, West Fork Whiskey, is that right? Okay, West Fork Whiskey PUD ordinance, and this is just a cut and paste exactly out of West Fork Whiskey. And it basically, there are pretty broad standards. No sound that emanates from a piece of property is allowed to be done in a manner that really creates inconvenience for neighbors or anybody. But in addition to this, there's very succinct standards in the West Fork proposal that no amplification equipment is able to be used between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. So we took that right out of there, placed it in this PUD, and that works. So with that, I think that concludes my remarks. I think I said this before, this is a $10 million investment into the Westfield community, and the owners are very excited to get moving on this project. They've had a lot of time to plan for this, and we are happy to respond to your questions, but would appreciate your favorable consideration this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move into commissioner comments. Since we have two virtual attendees tonight, I'd like to give them an opportunity to weigh in first, and then we'll move on to commissioner comments in whatever order everybody would like to speak. But to make certain that we give our virtual attendees an opportunity, we'll start with either Cindy Spoljaric or Ginny Kelleher. Whoever would like to take the lead, please proceed.
Jenny, you go ahead, please.
Okay. Matt, you talked about, I'm looking at the ordinance on page 4, and you talked about the cidery area, that these improvements and enhancements shown in Exhibit C shall be completed within 2 years of the adoption of this ordinance. Here's my question. It doesn't say, or a certificate of occupancy will not be issued. And number 2, you said that tied to that will be that the apple trees have to be planted before this can be used, but there's nothing in this ordinance that says that. And it's not in the pictures in Exhibit C. So while it may be something you intend to do, there's nothing in here that says that. And I guess the question is as much for staff as it is for anybody else.
You want me to take a stab first? So let me answer your first question first. So in order, a certificate of occupancy cannot be granted if a property is not compliant with applicable zoning regulations. Well, if these items, the way the ordinance is constructed, are not completed by the time that certificate of occupancy is being considered, it can't be issued.
I get that, Matt, but usually landscaping isn't tied to a COO.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Usually, I understand that. Usually landscaping is not tied to a COO. And when you give your Exhibit C, it just shows the building. It doesn't show the overall plan. So I'm asking, I guess, Pam or Kevin, will he be given a C of O for the cidery building only if all of the apple trees are planted? I mean, is that how you read this?
That's just a date. That's the April 23rd date. So
Right, but you just said in your presentation that you wouldn't get a C of O for the cidery building unless the apple trees were planted.
Yeah, and that's I mean, that from a very technical, practically, the answer is yes. I mean, they would have to be installed by April of 2023, so that's about a year and 3 months.
Okay, does that say some that
Yes.
in the ordinance? Okay,
Yeah.
maybe I missed it.
If you look at the orchard section.
Okay, orchard trees should be planted by April 1st. Okay, I get it.
And then the other items that you mentioned also have language to that effect, except it actually is tied to they must be installed prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the respective use.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I mean, am I answering?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Without that, I was trying to figure out
That's okay.
how we would tie this, so.
That's why I summarized it, but I can walk through each of those if it's necessary.
No, I see it now. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Cindy Spoljarek.
I do want to say thank you to the petitioner because we've had a lot of requests. This is a complicated project, in my opinion, that's kind of got a lot of moving parts. We don't know for sure that everything's going to happen, and we don't know how it's all going to interact together. And so trying to tie down these details has been a little tricky. But I do really appreciate removing the animal interaction. While I think that that would have been fun, I think with everything going on here, that would have been extra complicated. And without a professional on site to manage the animal husbandry, I had fairly sizable concerns. I do appreciate the other changes that have been made. The gooseneck lighting is really good. I think that'll be lovely at night. I still have concerns overall with this project. I don't know that it's enough to prevent me from voting for it. But I will say that I think there's been a lot of improvements made to this. And so I do appreciate the attention to these details. I'm hoping everything happens as it should. And I'd still like to hear from everybody else. Thanks.
Thank you. Rather than me nominating somebody in whatever order, whoever might have concerns they'd like to voice now, please start.
You mentioned the architectural enhancements, and I don't know that this time there's much enhancements as kind of reconciling the architecture, but I like it. I think it's more genuine than, I know previously you were just kind of aiming to hit the letter of what you thought we would be requiring, and it kind of came off that way, so it looks a lot better now. I appreciate that. It looks good. I'm not comfortable that we get in so much to all the scheduling thing. I understand the reasons for it and that we don't want things left unfinished, but it feels like we're starting to be construction managers instead of planners sometimes. So the fact that it's in there, I'm okay with. I kind of look past all that as not even sure if that's what we should be doing here, actually. Just feedback for you in terms of the animal interaction. I appreciate that she took it out due to the complexity at this time, and it was probably the right thing to do to keep moving forward. I hope you find a way to bring it back, because I think it fits. I think it makes sense for what this is. I think it is something that it's great to offer for families with small children, with the right attention and the right expertise to make everybody happy. I think that would be the right thing to bring back when you can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, well,
Okay.
whatever.
All
And
right.
the idea here is maybe Matt can answer in the flow of our discussion. And if somebody to my left here has a critical concern about something you happen to be bringing up right now, we should probably address all that concurrently.
Okay.
So, but go ahead,
Okay.
please.
Okay.
Yeah.
First off, I do want to thank the petitioner on this. I know I've sent quite a few emails with ideas, and I think that all of those have been taken seriously and addressed, and I do appreciate that. I also want to thank the team for making this late ad on the speakers that I asked about earlier today. I think that's really, the polite thing to do with adjoiners in the area of having residential. So thank you for that. And then if I can just get some clarification, Matt, on the fence. I had asked Pam about that earlier today, and she had indicated that maybe it doesn't go clear across the frontage. And then in your discussion just now, you said it does, and I can't quite find that in the ordinance to say how much. I would really like it to go across the whole frontage, like you just said. I mean, like really, really, and I can talk more about why I really would like to have that happen. As long as it is happening, I don't have to go into that.
Would you like me to wait to respond?
No.
No,
Okay.
I want you to respond
So
now.
it's easier to see here, but these are the columns.
Okay,
And this is the fence, and I'm happy to label it more clearly if that would be of help. But this is the fence, and so it does, in fact, extend from the west end here, which is right here, and it extends all the way to the entry feature here, and it runs from the entry feature here all the way, and you can see the column, and then it terminates here. So it runs the entire length of our frontage,
Okay,
except for the drives.
okay. Kevin, do you feel like that's clear in the ordinance?
We can add them later.
Yeah,
If it needs
We can
one,
add-
I haven't studied it.
Yeah, and nor have I. If we need to clarify that, we certainly can. If there's, I don't know, substantial compliance kind of language in is this related, is this tied to the landscape plan?
Yeah, it
Matt?
is, and it is substantial
So
compliance.
for me, that's enough, but maybe a label would help.
Show that
Clarify
it's the
that,
black
but-
fence?
Yep.
Because we have it in the concepts that there's the black fence, there's the landscaping, but then it just doesn't really say that that's going to be a fence. And I really appreciate that you're doing that because it looks a lot better, so that's great. But I just think from a safety standpoint, Spring Mill's a busy road. You're gonna have kids, and we all know how kids are. They're out getting the pumpkin, then they're running, and having some type of block there along Spring Mill, I think would be really smart for this type of property and this type of use. So I appreciate you doing that, and if we can just tighten up that language, that would be fantastic. And I think Jenny's touched on it, Andre's touched on it on these different time frames. I mean, I think that as long as these things are finished before people are actually there experiencing your product, that's certainly what I think everybody wants. So I appreciate you putting those checkpoints in there. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jenny and Cindy, if you are hearing something that you'd like to further comment on, please feel free to jump in when there's a gap. I'll listen for your attempt if need be and quiet everybody here down. Down this direction, anybody?
I have a question, though,
Oh,
just
please,
to
go ahead,
go
go
back
ahead.
to the fence discussion. Kristen, would clarifying it with a label, would that be sufficient for you, to satisfy you? It would for me. That would help us or whomever's reviewing it in the future. But did you want specific language in the text of the ordinance, or is just clarifying it on the exhibit?
Whatever makes it compliant, that
Perfect.
there is a fence. You're the expert on that, Kevin, but
Okay.
we all know these PUDs aren't about the people in the room who I think want to do the fence and want it to look beautiful. It can always get passed down the line. I just want to make sure it's clear that
Great.
we need to have a fence there. Thank you.
Thanks. Matt, does that?
This is Jenny. Can I jump in?
Please, yes, absolutely.
I think, I agree. I think the fence will look great along Spring Mill, and I think it will be a safety factor for children. I don't know, I understand that, Kevin, you understand that it's a fence, but, in a few years from now, is that clear enough for somebody else who picks this up brand new as a planner in Westfield? Or would it be clearer to have a sentence in there stating that? Because often, a new reviewer will not look in the details of the pictures, but read through the ordinance. So I guess for future planners who might be administering this, would that not be a better way to do it, is to put a sentence?
I don't think it's a big deal to add a sentence, but we do teach our people to look at all of the exhibits.
Okay,
I think if the column is labeled and the fence is labeled clearly on the exhibits, and I was thinking it was, and in looking at it here on the fly, maybe it's not, but I think the way this is, it even narratively says what it is. If it's just clearly labeled on the exhibit,
yeah, I'm fine with that, as long as staff is comfortable that it will be clear to somebody in the future, that's fine with me.
I think labeling it on the picture is a really good idea. I mean, it's in the writing that there's supposed to be a fence, but it doesn't really say it's the whole frontage or it's a certain length, so if we can just,
That's easy.
maybe do it in both places, it's great. Thank you, appreciate it.
Mike, please proceed.
Yeah, I would like to thank the petitioner for all the changes that have been made over the past year in this project. But as we move forward, I do need to let everyone know I am not a supporter of this project And really, I don't support it for five specific reasons. First of all, I think I'm not pleased with the quality of the materials being used in the project. We've got metal, a mixture of metal, we've got wood. I don't think the project, it compares to what other projects in the area have been. I would compare it to the whiskey company, and the amount of the investment, the type and quality of the architecture, and the materials that were used in that facility. And I'm not seeing that same architecture and materials in this project. I did question somewhat the concept of agritourism. I did like the idea that, hey, we would have animals on and the ability for visitors to interact with the animals. But now that they have been taken out of the equation, I feel we're kind of left with the same basic project that we have over in Urban Vines. I kind of think that almost as an Urban Vines 2.0, just a bigger and larger tavern, if you will. Essentially, we've added a cider company, but other than that, we've got the same winery there, the same seed company, and the same outdoor venues. So I don't see a huge difference between the two. I do question the noise element to the project. I know that I've received a number and numerous calls and letters from people and my resident petitioners that live near the Urban Vine location. I suspect we're going to have the same issue at this location. My fourth issue is the use of food trucks. I think that food trucks probably give somewhat of an unfair competitive advantage or situation to standalone restaurants in the area, to other venues that may be coming into the area where they'll have actual sit-down restaurants. So I question that. And then, most importantly, it comes down to the compliance issue. There seems to be an underlying compliance issue on virtually everything in this ordinance from a timing standpoint. And I think it really goes back to the fact that we had a compliance problem with respect to the Urban Vines project. And as I remember, staff told us, or didn't tell us, but they told the APC back in 2019 and the council at that time that they were unable and unqualified to be able to do code enforcement on that project from a staffing level. And I think we'll go back and listen to the comments that were made at that time, Kevin, that you said that we weren't able to enforce the codes. And that was the reason why that facility was
I'm not sure
built.
unqualified is accurate. Maybe,
Well,
maybe didn't have enough manpower.
Manpower, I think was the word. I apologize for that unqualified. But I don't know if you believe we have enough manpower to enforce those codes today. I think the last time around, it was suggested that the city council should take up the code enforcement, if I recall the conversation, right? And I don't think that that would be appropriate at this time. And so, for those reasons, I am a no on this project.
Thank you. Other comments?
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say that I think from the beginning, this project was very ambitious, and it still is ambitious, but like others who have spoken, I very much so appreciate the working together and trying to make this project better, and I think at the end of the day, this project is better from where we started at. I think for me, removing the animal husbandry aspect, given that can always be added at a later point in time, I think removing that right now is the best decision. So that way, with this new property, you can get a foothold on what all you want to do, et cetera. And then if the time comes of bringing in a petting zoo or whatever it may be, then the time comes for it. I think for me, the biggest issue, just that I've heard from neighbors and so forth with, again, living in this area is the sound and the issues we know that currently exist at the Urban Vines location. But I think with you mimicking the West Fork whiskey with the 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. I think that is very much so appreciated. And then same when you mentioned the certificate of occupancy with the stage and bringing in a tech to oversee that. I think, again, that is very much so appreciated. So with every project, I always say, we start on two opposite ends, and we got to have a little give and take and meet in the middle somewhere, and I think we've been able to do this on this one. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'll weigh in. I share a lot of the concerns that Mike John just elaborated on. The food trucks, looking at the definitions, which is the page I happen to have in front of me right now. Our food truck ordinance was something that we conceived of several years back and through a lot of thought and concern about the need for merchants that would actually be a presence in the community, and particularly in the Grand Park area. So food is such an important element of this. I think it really needs to have a true food element, not food trucks. I won't labor over the sound because I do think we're pretty well protected on that. I'm very curious to know how that works out if this should come to pass. I share the concerns about building architecture as well. Seasonal parking, large areas just with gravel that may have quite a bit of traffic. We don't usually accept those. That becomes quite a dust problem. Back on landscaping along the Springville Road frontage, but also back in the orchard area, I'm curious to know, are the apple trees that are depicted in here to scale, or is that more diagrammatic? There's nothing that says there's going to be X number of them, and typically in order to enforce landscape standards, we also need to know how many are supposed to be there, such that if they start dying off, when do we start expecting to see new ones planted to replace them? There are 45 of them shown along Springmill Road, 3 rows of 15. I'm honestly not sure how big an apple tree needs to be to fill that area. And then there's, I didn't take the time to count them in the back left corner, but if they're only half there at some point in time relative to this, how do we make certain that we've got the right amount of tree growth, and how long do they take to mature and actually do what they're supposed to do?
What you have is to scale and what our intent is.
So if we counted those, that would be the number that would be required to be there all the time.
That is the intention, yes.
And is Kevin okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, if they're willing to commit to that number, certainly
Yeah,
we can count to make sure that they get that number.
That's the intention.
All right, and these are to feed the operation of the cidery. And
Say
if they're
say
gonna-
that again?
The trees are being planted for the purpose of being part of the cidery operation.
Yes.
And if they're not planted until April 1st of 2023, or whatever the exact date was, when are they in a position to actually be able to have the growth that will enable the cidery operation?
So it's sooner than you would think, and I did not commit this to memory. It's how many years until?
Tree can produce apples in 3 years.
So a dwarf tree can produce apples in 3 years, but it's like 3 to 5 years is when they'll be in production. I mean, they don't get very tall. The idea is to
Right.
keep them short, and you want them to
Right.
be
And I've
yeah.
been in apple orchards, but they're long established ones. I have no idea how long those trees had grown, but I know they're there for a long time, the ones that I visited. So if they're in 2023 and they don't have apples for this 3 to 5 year time period, what happens in between to operate the cidery?
I'm going to have to defer to our, hold on.
Why don't you come forward and go through the introductory process here for us, please?
My name's Noah Heron, owner of Urban Apples, and what we will do is bring in apple juice, and we'll always bring in tankers of apple juice. This 2-acre apple orchard will only produce several hundred gallons of apple juice, which is enough for maybe a week or two. So we're going to need hundreds of acres of apples, so we always will bring them in. So that's what we do at the winery as well.
So most of the operation then is not homegrown, so to speak.
Oh, we would need, I mean, a lot of acreage to be able to do that, so no.
All right. what else happens in the cidery, in the orchard? Is there some more experiential part of having that as a big component of this? Or are we really more for the liquid component to be able to have hot cider when we go out there?
Yeah, I mean, they'll have a area for sales of related materials and things, but they'll have educational type of tours and things of that nature on site, just like any other winery or brewery does.
Okay. Other
I-
folks that may not have spoken, or Ginny?
It's
say-
Jenny again. I know that our agritourism definition talks about things grown on site, and I realize you probably can't grow enough apples on site to do some of that. But my other question is, are there going to be restaurants in either of these buildings? I mean, Urban Vines started off as a tasting room, and now it is basically a restaurant, from what I understand, that serves both wine and pizza and things like that. So is there a plan for like a restaurant like that in here?
Yeah, anything that is done would be 100% consistent with the agritourism definition. There will be related food sales and, gift shop type of sales, just like any other winery or brewery. But yeah, there's certain food fare that would be provided.
Okay.
Just limited
Thank you.
menu. I mean, Urban Vines is far from a restaurant. I mean, they have some food items, but it's not really a restaurant.
Okay, thanks.
Matt or Dave, we haven't heard from either of you yet. Any comments, questions?
I don't really have anything to add that hasn't already been mentioned. Overall, I greatly appreciate the changes and the refinements that have been made to what was presented tonight. A ton of progress was made, recognizing that there's still some issues that some have brought up. I think we're kind of hitting the petitioner both ways. We were critical of the animal piece before, and now some critical of taking it out, so the petitioner can't really win there. Although I think there is a consensus, or at least several of us, and include myself, that to the extent that can be included down the road and done properly, however proper is determined to be, that would be a great amenity for the project. I think I'm perhaps a little more comfortable with the changes maybe in the architectural elements. I like them a lot better than I did before. And it seemed like there was some, and I do enjoy, I think with the noise issue, that's just huge. But we've grown, as a city, we've grown in awareness of the issue. The petitioner certainly has a greater appreciation than he did when Urban Vines started. So I think we can have higher expectations of the petitioner in compliance with the noise issue, and we'll have higher expectations on our end as well. And I think the ordinance gives us the mechanism for making that happen. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Deck?
Again, and being fairly new to this commission, I greatly respect all of my fellow commissioners and their education in things of this matter, and just their years of experience in making sure that we get things just right in the city of Westfield. And even in this case, I think Mr. Skelton's been in front of us 3 times now, and I think there's been improvements made each time. And in saying that, thank you. And thank you to my commissioners for being so diligent in making sure that we're going to get this project just right. I look at the petitioner who's already enhanced tourism here in Westfield a great deal, and he's willing to contribute an additional $10 million to the city to further enhance tourism. I think there's already an established relationship, as I think Dave just mentioned. If there is an issue, especially with noise, I can't imagine the petitioner wouldn't go out of his way to work with us in solving that issue. The food trucks, this concept seems ideal for something like a food truck, and there are no restaurants in the immediate vicinity. I can't imagine 1 or 2 or 3, whatever they are, food trucks is going to affect the business of the KFC over there by Meyer. I mean, again, there's nothing really out there, and it seems rather innocuous. So I just feel like as a commission, we owe the petitioner some respect with regards to what he's already done in our community, and I'm excited to get to the point where we can vote on this.
Further comments?
Yeah, if I may,
Victor
just
have
real quick,
something?
with food trucks being mentioned again. For me, as someone who doesn't drink, and I'll admit that I don't go to Urban Vines very much due to that reason, the possibility of having food trucks at this location, I think, entices me to visit more. And as Matt just mentioned, with not having any restaurants in the immediate area, I don't really see any, for lack of a better term, conflict of interest in that area of competing and so forth. And I think also just with the younger generation, that's something that we appreciate, that, hey, on one night we might have a Mexican food truck, the next night some piatas or whatever it is. And I think that adds an extra character to this development. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kelleher or Cindy Spoljarek, do you have any further comments?
Nothing from me, thank you.
And nothing for me right now, thanks.
Okay.
So Urban Vines has crept into the conversation quite a bit, and I don't disagree with a lot of the comments, including the compliance issues, but to me, that's a separate conversation. That's not the petition we're here to look at. One thing I do have is a question, just planning-wise, getting the concept straight in my head. By comparison, do you happen to remember what the acreage is at Urban Vines? I'm just trying to size this compared to that.
This is 5 times the size.
5 times, and it was bigger, so,
Yes.
okay, that helps. Thank you.
And the nearest home to the northeast, which is where, which should not be audible, right? If we're compliant, but the nearest home is 2,000 feet away. I mean, it's a totally different context.
I was looking for that as a basis of comparison, because I knew this was larger, I didn't know how much. Thank you.
If there are no further comments, petitioner's looking for a recommendation to council. So we would be looking for a favorable or unfavorable or no recommendation motion from someone on the commission.
I make a motion that we send 2108-PUD-22, the Urban Apples PUD, to the city council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Andre Maui, second by Victor McCarty, to send a favorable recommendation to council. Will staff please call the roll?
Matthew Deck,
Yes.
Robert Horke,
All these changes have made this so agonizing and difficult. I'm afraid I can't really go with a yes on this, unfortunately. No.
Mike Johns,
No.
Kelleher, Ginny Kelleher,
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. This is a tough one. Noah, do it right, and I'll vote yes.
so is that a nay?
It was a
No,
yes.
that was a yes. And I'm asking Noah to please do it right and complete it, and don't leave any loose ends.
Thank you. Andre Maui,
Yes.
McCarty,
Think this is a fresh start? Yes.
Dave Schmitz,
Yes.
Cindy Spoljarek,
Yes.
and Kristen Berkman.
Yes.
All right, motion carries 7-2.
Thank you. Thank you. Next item of business in front of us tonight is 2112-ODP-27 and 2112-SPP-26, Casey Corner.
Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, Rachel Remenschneider with the Community Development Department. This proposal is for the overall development plan and primary plat review of 80 lots on approximately 11 acres in the Spring Mill Trails PUD district. This project is located east of Ditch Road and west of Casey Road. This item received its public hearing at the December 6th APC meeting. The item is before you this evening for approval, as well as the approval of 2 waivers. The first waiver is to increase the length of the cul-de-sac, and the second is to exempt the multifamily amenity requirements. Minor changes have been made since the public hearing to bring the project into compliance, including the addition of an exhibit describing the provided amenities. John Dobashewitz of Nelson and Frankenberger is here tonight to make a brief presentation. He and I are available for questions. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is John Dobashewitz, for the record. Here this evening with Steve Edwards, Platinum Properties, and Jim Schinner, returning with our office. As you will recall, this matter was before you at your last meeting. There were 2 waiver requests that we forecast at that time. One was with regard to the cul-de-sac length, which we have, and you also have a response from the city engineer, John Dale.
I'm sorry, is his microphone on? It's really hard to hear.
There you go. Sorry. Chris, is that you?
Yeah, thank you.
I turned it on. Again, 2 waiver requests that we forecast for you at your last meeting, one regarding the cul-de-sac length, which we have a response from John Nail. The other was a discussion with regard to the applicability and construction of the PUD ordinance that was reviewed by the Plan Commission earlier this year. It was suggested at that time, and we agreed to some additional pedestrian amenities along the path. There's an exhibit on display for those members of the Plan Commission present this evening. We're looking at the exhibit on display on the screen. There's a blow-up of that exhibit that's colored at the top right-hand corner of that exhibit, and there would be 2 benches added and then 2 pieces of exercise equipment. And with regard to the exercise equipment, there were some comments made at the last Plan Commission meeting, some concern about not necessarily vandalism, but use and things like that. So we went to what I'll call the next level, and the petitioner sought out equipment that is designed. You can see if you zoom in here, there's bolts, very high-grade equipment that is proposed at these 2 different locations in response to those comments suggesting that we might want to go and elect to have something there that's got a little more longevity or life to it and higher construction standards than what would otherwise typically be in a situation where you might see that. So we've provided that, and it'll be provided at those 2 locations as well as the benches. And we would ask for your consideration of the 2 waiver requests to be subject to including these items, and that's part of the letter that we have in front of you this evening. With that, we'll conclude. We worked with staff. All the other things are in compliance with regard to the primary plat, and we would seek the Plan Commission's consideration this evening for approval, first of the waiver request and then second of the primary plat. And we'll be available for any questions that you might have in advance of your adoption consideration.
Thank you. Once again, we'll allow Dr. Kelleher or Cindy Spoljarek to weigh in as virtual attendees, and then Plan Commission members that may have questions just can speak.
There, that's good.
Either of our virtual attendees have questions or comments?
This is Jenny. I have one. I've never seen exercise equipment outside, so is this weatherproof? Just a curiosity, or is it going to be under like a little canopy or pergola or something?
It's weatherproof, designed for 4 seasons.
Okay, never saw that before. My second question is, the way to access this equipment and things is to go all the way to the end of the cul-de-sac, and then there's a little connection to the trail on each one of those cul-de-sacs. Is that correct? Is that how people in this subdivision will access this equipment?
Yeah, Dr. Keller, I'm not sure if you can see the image on display, but working from left to right, there's access to the trail that's along Casey Road or the extension of Casey. There's access to the sidewalk that runs in front of all the units that face Casey. There's access to the termination of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was.
working to the other side, an additional connection to the cul-de-sac, and then to the path that's existing along Casey Road.
Okay, thank you, John. That's it.
Thank you. Cindy Spoljarek?
Nothing at this time, thanks.
Thank you. Commission members, questions or comments?
I'll just say that I appreciate the extra forethought in securing the workout equipment, so thank you.
Thank you.
I just also want to thank you for adding this equipment and adding an amenity. We talked about it last time, and I think these are great choices. So thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? If not, we have two waivers that we need to approve. First would be the length of the cul-de-sac in excess of the 600 feet is satisfactory to the city engineer. Is there a motion to approve this waiver?
Should I read the entire statement or just make a motion to approve?
Go ahead and read it into the record.
Okay. Make a motion to approve the requested subdivision waivers from UDO Article 8.9 G3A to allow the maximum cul-de-sac length to exceed 600 feet, and from UDO Article 8.6 H to allow the features on the amenity plan exhibit to meet the multifamily district amenity requirements.
Now that you've read it all, let me clarify with council or commissioner or the director. Can we do these as a pair, or do we need them individually? I was expecting to do them individually, but.
I would prefer you do them individually.
That's what I thought. All right. So the applicable part was only through the 600 feet distance.
Yeah.
That would be the first waiver. So Victor McCarty is motion. Do we approve it? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second from Andre Maui. Will staff please call the roll?
Robert Horke,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mike, can you repeat that, please?
Yes.
So, Rachel, I don't think we heard your second name.
Oh, sorry, Mike Johns,
Yes.
Ginny Kelleher,
Yes.
Andre Maui,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Dave Schmitz,
Yes.
Cindy Spoljarek,
Yes.
Kristen Berkman,
Yes.
and Matthew Deck.
Yes.
Thank you.
Carries.
Waiver number 2 is the continuation of what Victor read, beginning with the UDO article that will allow the indicated amenities to satisfy this requirement. Is there a motion? Victor again,
Should I read it again?
please.
Okay. Make a motion to approve, excuse me, make a motion to approve from UDO Article 8.6 to allow the features of the amenity plan exhibit to meet the multifamily district amenity requirements.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Victor McCarty and a second from Matt Deck. Will staff please call the roll?
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Ginny Kelleher,
Yes.
Andre Maui,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Dave Schmitz,
Yes.
Cindy Spoljarek,
Yes.
Kristen Berkman,
Yes.
Matthew Deck,
Yes.
Robert Horke.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now that we have the motions, or the waivers approved, we are ready for a motion on Casey Corner. This is actually an approval. It's our approval here. It is not a recommendation to council. Will somebody offer a motion? Victor,
Make a motion to approve the overall development plan and primary plat, 2112 ODP 2 and 2112 SPP 26, with the condition that all necessary approvals shall be obtained from the Westfield Public Works Department and Hamilton County Surveyor's Office prior to the issuance of an improvement location permit.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
We have a motion from Dave Schmitz, second by Mike Johns. Will staff please call the roll?
Ginny Kelleher,
Yes.
Andre Maui,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Dave Schmitz,
Yes.
Cindy Spoljarek,
Yes.
Kristen Berkman,
Yes.
Matthew Deck,
Yes.
Robert Horke,
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and want everyone to have a happy and safe holiday season and New Year. Thank you.
You as
Thank you,
well.
John. We have one public hearing tonight. Item number 2112-SPV-01, Style Right Meadows Plat Vacation. Is Pam going to do this, or you, Kevin?
No, I'm gonna
You'll speak.
pinch hit here, and save Pam's voice.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, members of the Planning Commission. The item before you this evening is not something that we normally see, but this is a request to vacate an existing plat. This is actually a portion of the Style Right Meadows plat, which is located at the southeast corner of 203rd Street and Tomlinson Road. The plat contains 31 lots and was approved in November of 1977 and was recorded in May of 1978. The petitioner, Chatham Hills LLP, owns 26 of the 31 lots and would like to vacate those from the plat. Most of these lots have been included in the primary plat for Chatham Village and would be replatted as Section 1 of Chatham Village. Because not all owners in the Style Right Meadows subdivision have signed off on the vacation request, statute requires a public hearing, which is what we're doing this evening. So this has been properly noticed and advertised for a public hearing this evening. Following the hearing, the department recommends approving the proposed plat vacation. Phil Sundling with the petitioner is attending virtually and is available for questions, and I don't believe he plans to make further presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll open the public hearing at 8:12. We have no audience left in the room, so if there is anybody attending virtually, please email us quickly at planners@westfield.in.gov. We will wait until 8:14 to receive something, and if we do not, public hearing will be closed and we will go ahead and consider this.
I have no emails have been sent either, so.
Just in case somebody's waited till now, we'll give them a little bit of time.
Kevin, can I ask a question while we're waiting, or should I wait until we close the public hearing?
Let's wait till we close the public hearing.
Okay.
Which will happen in about 30 seconds unless we receive an email. It is now 8:14. If Kevin could reconfirm that there are no emailed comments.
Yep, still no emails.
Okay. Public hearing is closed at 8:14. Dr. Kelleher, you have a comment.
Just a question. I'm fine with this, but my question is, all of the area outlined in yellow is owned by Chatham and it's part of their PUD, is that correct?
Everything in yellow is part of the Chatham PUD and they own that land. That was her question. Is it part of the Chatham PUD? Do they own it?
Hey, it's a good question.
Is all the yellow part of Chatham? I mean, that's why we're vacating it, because it's a part of Chatham, right? Or not?
Phil Sundling, are you
I'm
on the
here.
call?
Can you guys hear me?
Okay. Is there an answer you can provide for Dr. Kelleher?
Can you guys hear me?
little scratchy.
Yeah, we can hear there's some static, but
I'll try to talk loud. Yes, this is all part of Chatham Hills. We own all of that ground. Up on like Kevin mentioned, everything that's getting vacated is either within the plat for Section 1 of Chatham Village, which has already been approved. It's under construction. We're pretty much wrapping it up now. And if it's outside of that plat, it's part of the amenity package. I think there's some tennis courts there on the northwest, tennis and pickleball courts on the northwest corner of what you see in yellow. So yes, all part of Chatham.
so it's all, yeah, it's all a part. So the question that I have, Kevin, is you said not everyone in this subdivision signed off on it. I wanted to make sure it wasn't one of these that was included in the Chatham, but what did you mean by that? Not everybody signed off on it.
And I can answer that too, Kevin, if it's easier.
Yeah, go for it, Phil.
From what I gathered, Jenny, from Pam and from the city's attorney, I think there's two options. The first option is if every property owner within that recorded plat signs off on a vacation, then it doesn't require a public hearing. If for some reason you can't get all the signatures of property owners, then it requires or necessitates the public hearing, which is where we're at now. We have relationships with most of those families. I think there's 3 or 4 parcels that are, or 3 or 4 different property owners. I think there's 6 parcels in total that we do not own, none of which have expressed issues with this. There's one property owner. She's very old. We don't have contact information. We tried to reach out to her, connect with her. Again, we've talked with her through construction. I think some of the guys in the field have even met with her a few times, but we couldn't get her, connect with her in time. So we went ahead and just moved forward with the public hearing. But as far as I know, no issues from any of those property owners. We've got closer relationships with most of those.
Okay. I assumed that. I was just curious as to how this worked. When Kevin said, I haven't gotten everybody, I set up a little red flag here. So, all right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Did everybody catch that? So, and I don't know the particulars of which lots may not have been able to respond here, but all of these lots that front 203rd Street are part of the Stiles Wright Meadows plat, current plat that's been on the books since the late 70s. They are not part of this vacation request, but statute gives us 2 options, right? Either we can get 100% of the people in the current plat to sign off on this request to vacate, which they do not have because they just didn't obtain all of those signatures, or hold a public hearing, which is what we're doing tonight.
Right. This public hearing would be their last best opportunity to say, wait a minute, I have a problem with this. Since they have not weighed in, we can close the book on it. And the 4 owners are listed in this vacation plat. One owns lots 2 and 3.
They would have been notified of the hearing and had an opportunity to show up this evening.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
as I say, I don't have a problem. I was just wondering how things worked for my future reference. Thank you.
No, this isn't something we do every day, so.
And by the way, our first zoning ordinance in Westfield was in 1977, so this probably was one of the very first things that was actually zoned under our old UDO.
Yeah, it probably was.
yeah. And I didn't even know it existed till this vacation came up. Recognize one of the names on that list. So we've now done what we need to do to allow this to occur. So we are looking for a motion to approve. Yeah, we can continue with this tonight. So,
And Bob, did you close the hearing?
I did that at 8:14.
Okay.
Yeah. So we need to have a motion to approve the petition to vacate. Anybody?
I make a motion to approve the vacation petition 2112-SPV-01.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Was that you, Dr. Kelleher, seconding?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Andre Maurer, second from Ginny Kelleher. Will staff please call the roll?
Andrew Maui,
Yes.
Victor McCarty,
Yes.
Dave Schmitz,
Yes.
Cindy Spoljarek,
Yes.
Kristen Berkman,
Yes.
Matthew Deck,
Yes.
Robert Horke,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Jenny Callaher.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
This one's different. Please don't leave without signing. You guys all need to sign this. We'll pass it down the line here. For Jenny and Cindy, since you're not here, we'll have to coordinate a time for you guys to come and sign this document.
You still have the sign box in the entranceway?
Yeah. If not, we
Okay.
can, we can put something up that, there is still a
Okay.
table out there, so.
All right, thanks, Kevin.
All right, so everyone, Kevin's going to bar the door before we leave. That completes our scheduled business and takes us down to reports and comments. Are there any comments from the Plan Commission in general for the rest of us? Kristen Berkman?
I just wanted to give a quick update that the team working on the streetscape has met a couple times. And this last week, we kind of took a direction to work on State Road 32. It sounds like that particular area needs some direction by March 31st of 2022. And it's just around the corner, so we're going to start efforts in that area, and I will keep everyone updated on how we are progressing and get everybody's input along that journey to March 31st. And then and I'll take any questions if anybody has any, but I also just really wanted to thank Bob and Jenny for serving as president and vice president this year of the APC. I know that's extra time for both of you, and you've done an outstanding job, and I just wanted to say how much I appreciate it.
Thank you. I enjoyed it, oddly, you might think. So, any other commissioner comments? If not, we'll look for a city council liaison update on council activities.
I will try and do that tonight. Can you guys hear me? I think you
Loud
can.
and clear. Loud and clear.
Okay, a little too loud maybe. Chris always tells me to turn it up, so excuse me if it's too loud. We had 3 additional appropriations for the legal fees. That's an ongoing issue that most are familiar with at this point, I think, for fire and for public works. So those were approved. We approved the elected officials' salary ordinance for 2022. We did an amendment resolution for the economic revitalization area for Ortho Indy. And then if you remember, we had the 3 different Plan Commission orders that we voted on before for Eagletown TIF, Lantern Commons TIF, and Aurora. And those were adopted. We had a voluntary annexation. If you're familiar with Marla Ayler's property, she is doing a voluntary annexation, so that was introduced and publicly heard. Other introductions, amending the Westfield Fire Department's fire prevention ordinance, the annual transferring of funds that's done by the clerk treasurer's office. We introduced the Belcanto PUD district that will be before us January 18th. That did not get a very favorable, I don't know what consensus out of the council, but is still on our agenda, I guess, for January 18th. And that is off of, it's near 169th, David Brown, if you will, and 31, near the auto dealership, and then fronting 31, a mixed-use project. Then there's the Osborne Trails PUD Amendment 3 for signage. That was just a council introduction. And the 2022 Policies and Procedures Manual, also introduced, and the 2022 fee schedule. So that was about it. Thanks.
Thank you. There was a BZA meeting with a few items.
Yeah,
Have
there
a
was.
report?
BZA met and approved 4 different petitions. The first was a petition in the shopping center by Harmony, the 146th and Ditch. a petition to permit a dumpster enclosure in the front yard setback. It's one of those properties, the road configuration is such that it has a frontage road behind it, 146th Street in front of it, and a road that runs north-south next to it, so it had 3 front yards, so it wasn't much of an option, and it was put in the best location, but it required a variance. Second, the Monine Hills subdivision, Noah Heron, who was here earlier, his subdivision, he sought a variance to increase the sign area for his monument sign for that subdivision. Basically, they're very consistent with what the Viking Meadows entry signs are all along 156th Street, and that was approved. We had a pool location variance that was approved in Andover, and very small, 3 feet. It actually was under construction, and they screwed something up in the foundation and the location of it. So they sought it after they put at least had started the pool. They stopped construction and had to get the variance. And finally, there was a variance of use to permit a machine shop on 32, trying to remember what cross street it was, but it's actually a building that's operated under a variance since, I think it was 1994. And the variance was extended. The business has operated continuously, but it was tied to the ownership by a particular individual who's passed away. So it was necessary to continue to the business to get a variance that wasn't tied to that individual's life. So that variance was extended. Same guy operating the business, has been doing it for like 12 years, I think he told us. So it's actually tucked back. I had no idea it was back there. But anyway, that was it.
Thank you. Anything from the Community Development Department?
No, not really. Just next month is January, starting a new year. Just a quick reminder, we do not have a meeting. This group does not have a meeting the first week of January. So your next meeting will be January the 18th, which is a Tuesday. So all these kind of weird conditions at the first of the year. But and we do anticipate that one being a little bit of a heavier agenda. So kind of buckle up for that. But
I'm sure and have a snack before the meeting.
Yeah. That's right. So, but anyway, no, thank you. Thank you guys for your service this year, and we look forward to another great year. Have a Merry Christmas and a safe and Happy New Year.
Bob, Miss Jenny, can I say one thing?
Please
I
do.
want everybody to have a great, Christmas and New Year. I want to also let you know that the hospitals are full. Eskenazi has 80 COVID patients, 40 are on vents. They have patients in the hallways. They're thinking of putting up hazmat tents, so please stay healthy and safe over the holidays. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Victor McCarty, thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Kristen Berkman. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
Thank you. It's unanimous. Meeting adjourned at 8:28 p.m.